Hey, welcome everyone. This is the Steampunk Stories and Live Show, episode 3, September 9th, 2015. I should have a guest pretty soon. Daniel is away doing something on some shenanigans, so my usual guest, Daniel, will not be here today, unfortunately. But if nobody joins, I am just going to go and keep recording and keep trucking away. And I have a list of topics here that we're going to discuss through the next hour. And Utsi the Iceman theories. There are several theories about Utsi the Iceman, and recent CAT scans and recent genetic analysis of his remains and his stuff have led to some interesting theories and interesting mysteries, and it has also shed light on like the last 30 hours of his life. Venomous frequency, professional scammer. I believe that she is. Dear Fat People response video. I did a Dear Fat People response video about Nicole Arbor, and I got some negative response on that. I will talk about that. Star Wars The Force Awakens Instagram trailer review. I will talk about that. Why Star Wars will be good despite J.J. Abrams. I will talk about that. Bear with me here. It's a little bit more awkward. I'm trying to invite some people to get on the show. It's always a little bit more interesting when you have somebody else on there. Go ahead. Anyway, Utsi the Iceman, that's one of my favorite topics of the day, and that's the first topic that I want to talk about on this show. I haven't done an Utsi the Iceman video before, but he is a significant archaeological find. If you guys don't know or you haven't heard, he was discovered in 1991 near the on the Austrian border with Italy, or the Austrian-Italian border. Actually, he was on the Italian side, about 100 meters from the Austrian border in high altitude in the Alps. And he apparently been encased in ice for 5,300 years. And basically, as the ice started to thaw out, probably as a attribute of global warming, I had to surmise. As the glacier started to melt, his body was exposed, but he still had all of his flesh intact, including his eyeballs and his blood cells, which they later discovered. And it was just an amazing archaeological find. They didn't think that human flesh could remain preserved that long or frozen that long. So when hikers hiking in the obscure area of the Italian Alps near the Austrian border discovered the corpse, they thought this was a recent casualty. They thought this was maybe somebody who had died hiking or skiing like a few weeks before. And when the police were called and they came in to dig up Utsi's corpse, he's named after the mountains of the region. Nobody knows what his real name was, of course, because this is before writing. They realized that he had a lot of stone flint tools, flint arrows. He had a quiver that was perfectly preserved, the oldest quiver known. He had, what was even more interesting, he had a copper axe. And he had a lot of unfinished bows, and his clothes were kind of were torn. And from the pictures I saw, the clothing was actually in bad shape, but there was enough of his clothing left, even though it was badly damaged by the glacier, that you could tell what the clothing was like. And he had a backpack, and he still had one of his snowshoes on. I mean, the guy had much more sophisticated clothing and much more sophisticated tools than what they originally thought that somebody from 5,300 years ago had, which is just absolutely amazing. I mean, originally they had placed the Bronze Age, or the beginning of smelting of metals for Europeans, at about 2,000 years ago. This guy was carbon dating to 5,300 years ago. And so bear with me here. I'm trying to invite some more people. But yeah, and so in recent CAT scans, they realized that he had arterial fluorosis, he had hardening of the arteries, which seems to contradict the fact that they thought that this disease was caused by a fatty food diet. This guy ate goat meat and grains based on the content of his stomach. And based on the I got a guest coming on. I know it here. We'll see if you can join the show. But yeah, I mean, it was an amazing find. And recent genetic analysis seems to indicate that he had the blood of 2 people on his clothing, and his right hand had been severely cut and partially healed. So he'd been in hand-to-hand combat within the last 30 hours. And he had apparently recent DNA analysis. One of his arrows was used to kill 2 different people, because he had the DNA of 2 people on one of his arrows. He apparently shot one person with his flint head arrow. This was the borderline between the Bronze Age and the Stone Age. They originally thought this was entirely Neolithic Stone Age, but now the history books have been rewritten because of Woodsy the Iceman, and this is he was a transitional point, probably early Bronze Age, because he still had some stone tools, and he had a copper axe. The copper axe probably had some religious significance. And the controversy with Woodsy the Iceman is that there's some people that think that he was a sacrifice, that he, decided, hey, I'm near the end of my life, because in the Stone Age, in the early Copper Age, you were lucky if you survived to be 45. The average person lived to be like 38, 40. So this guy at 45, he lived to be older than normal, than what most people lived at the time. And basically, some people think he was a sacrifice and he purposely had somebody kill him, but most sacrifices that were done in the Stone Age, it was done facing forward, because you would face death head on. So the fact that he was shot from behind seems to suggest that somebody purposely killed him and that it wasn't voluntary. This is a homicide, nevertheless. And the interesting thing is the flint arrowhead, they originally didn't discover it because it was hidden in his bones, one of his shoulder blades, and the flint arrowhead was embedded. And then later, with CAT scans, they discovered this flint arrowhead. They were like, "Wow, this is what contributed to his death." But it's actually not what finally killed him. He was shot with a flint arrowhead. It pierced, I think, his carotid, or it pierced one of his. I'm not a medical person, so I sometimes have a hard time pronouncing some of the words. But it pierced a major artery going through his heart. He would have died from this wound within a few minutes. He would have bled out and bled to death. But he didn't die from it. They said he died from a head wound. And they're not sure if the head wound was caused by a finishing blow by the attacker, or did he fall, hit a rock. I actually feel that it was by his attacker. And then the third theory is that he was betrayed by somebody in his tribe and ambushed by somebody he knew and trusted because they wanted to take over his leadership. They believe that he was a tribal chieftain. But there are things that contradict that theory. If he was actually ambushed by somebody in his tribe and assassinated, and this was like an early case of assassination 5,300 years ago, why didn't they take his copper axe? That would have been a very valuable relic. If he was attacked by a war party, he was fighting another tribe, Why didn't they take his copper axe? It would have been war booty. It would have been war. And if he was sacrificed, which is what some people theorize, why didn't he have a proper burial? He appears to have just been left out in the open, and then his body was covered in snow. And his body immediately became frozen. He froze within a few hours after his death because there wasn't really much decomposition. I mean, he looks like a zombie today. But that's just because the glacier has absorbed most of the water from his body and has created a mummification process in which the outer layer of skin is missing. But the amazing thing is, even though he's mummified, unlike Egyptian mummies, he has intact blood cells. And they were able to actually sequence his entire DNA. His entire DNA was reserved. They're not fragments, but like his entire DNA. They could actually clone Utsi if they wanted to. And the legal issues. But here is my theory about what I think happened to Utsi. He was, based on his injuries, he had cuts and lacerations. Oh, hi, Daniel. I didn't mean to ignore you. I'd already started recording, and I was talking about Utsi, so I wanted to finish my thought, and I'll ask you what you think about it, and then we'll move to the next topic. But my theory about Utsi the Iceman goes like this. Based on the lacerations on his body, he had numerous lacerations and cuts. He'd been in a lot of injuries. He killed 2 to 4 people himself. I feel like he was warring with another tribe near a border territory, which ironically is still a border today, which is the border between Austria and Italy. And his tribe was warring, and he's the last survivor of his tribe. Because based on isotopic analysis of the enamel of his teeth, and the contents of his stomach, they were able to actually backtrace where he came from. They actually got an idea. I can't think of it right offhand. They actually know the village that he came from. The village today has a name. And I'm going to go to the Utsi the Iceman Wikipedia article. I really love this guy. I want to talk about him in depth. Brad Pitt has a tattoo of Utsi the Iceman on his arm. Let's see. Nice. We're going to be talking about Star Wars later on. I'm sure Daniel will be more inclined to talk about that as well. But anyway, so my theory is he was in a warring tribe. He's the last survivor of his tribe because he abruptly went down the valley. This is based on contents of his stomach. They can tell where the grains came from and how recently he ate. And based on circumstantial evidence, Utsi the Iceman went down the valley where he had been living for a while. And then he abruptly changed course and went and took the shortest route to the top of the mountain. So it's almost like I theorize that his village had been sacked and burned. And he was the last survivor of his village. He was also the tribal chief. And the enemy tribe was chasing him. He had fought some of them off heroically. He'd killed 2 to 4 of them. He'd either injured 2 people very badly, and he at least killed 2 people. But, being that he was the last survivor of his tribe, the enemy tribe caught up with him, or at least one of the archers from the enemy tribe caught up with him and sniped him out from a distance. And because he was a tribal chief and he had the copper axe, back then smelting of metal was considered magical. It was considered magical. You had power. You were a person who was proficient in smelting copper or bronze. You were a magical being. And if you were a tribal chief and you had a valuable relic like a copper axe, the axe would have been considered magical, just based on evidence of Neolithic Stone Age. And so this would explain why he was left in an open field and then immediately his body froze and snow covered him over. If he had any loved ones or family or any members of his tribe left alive, they wouldn't have been able to find him because he would have been covered with snow. And the reason why his axe wasn't taken is because they were scared of his magic, which would make sense for a Neolithic Stone Age tribe, and it would also make our early Bronze Age tribe. And you feel like this tribal chief, he's magical. He's got a magical weapon. You know, most people this time don't know how to smell bronze. And so you're afraid of angering the spirits, or you're afraid of challenging that magic. So even though you killed him, you wouldn't pick up his axe because you would be fearful of the magic that that axe has. And so this would explain the evidence that he had been in heavy combat and received many minor injuries before he got the fatal one that killed him. And I believe the person who killed him, they apparently took the shaft of the arrow out of his back, and I think they flipped him over and hit him in the face with a rock to make sure he was dead. Because this is like late Neolithic, Stone Age, early Bronze Age. They didn't have that much medical science back then. You know, even though he has an arrow in his back and he's bleeding out, some people may realize, you know, he might survive. Let me finish him off with a rock. And so that's my theory about Ötzi Geisman. Uh-oh. I'm done talking about Ötzi Geisman. We lost Daniel. But I'm going to move on to my next topic. Venomous frequency. Okay. Daniel, come back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I hit the wrong button.
Oh, okay. No big deal. No biggie. I think the show is better if you want it, and I value your company. And, I mean, you could see, you'll see in the recording of this cast or this live show, whatever you want to call it, that I can recant information and talk to myself if need be.
Yeah.
Definitely much more interesting. So what did you think about my Ötzi Geisman theory? Do you think that's a plausible theory about how he died?
I think that you're right, that like maybe he wasn't in tribal war or something, and then, well, it maybe started with him trying to go home, and then he found out he saw his home burning to the ground, and he saw the invading army, and then he ran away into the mountain, he chased them down, and then they axed him.
Why do you think they didn't take his copper axe? Because they said that would have been invaluable. Some archaeologists are puzzled by this. They feel like that if he was killed by an enemy tribe, they should have taken his copper axe. That would have been a very valuable commodity.
I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
Well, my theory is that people who smelted metals back then were considered magical. The ability to smelt metals was considered magical. You had energy, you had superpowers, and I feel like they would have been fearful of his magic. And there's evidence based on his clothing and his equipment that he was probably a tribal chieftain. So even though they killed him and they eliminated the threat, they would have been afraid to take his axe because they would have been fearful of his magic. Or they might have even been fearful that maybe his spear would haunt the axe. He would be cursed. And I think that would explain why his valuable copper axe was left there. And it was actually a very valuable artifact because if he didn't have his copper axe with him, if somebody had taken it, can you imagine if somebody had taken his copper axe, they would have just described him as a Neolithic Stone Age man. But because they found the copper axe with a wooden handle, they had to rewrite the history books. In 1991, they were like, wow, the Bronze Age is actually much older than we thought. Because originally we thought the Bronze Age was in 2000. Anyway, well, I want to wrap up on Ötzi Geisman, unless you have any other thoughts about Ötzi Geisman.
No, not right now, at least.
Okay, moving on. Venomous Frequency. She is a YouTuber. I feel like she's a professional scammer. She's what I'd call a professional feminist. I have nothing per se wrong with feminism. I don't see anything wrong with feminism. You're entitled to your own opinion. I consider myself more of an egalitarian. But there was a video a couple years ago that leaked about her. She did a Kickstarter and got $500,000 to do these women tropes. Female tropes in video games video series. She got paid $500,000 for Kickstarter to do that. And she's taking video games out of context Like in the Hitman series, she talks about how in the Hitman game you're rewarded for killing women and playing around with their bodies, and she shows video of that, but that's actually taken out of context. Yeah, you can kill people in Hitman, but from what I understand, if you kill innocent bystanders in the game Hitman, you actually get a penalty for it. So she is actually lying when she says that it actually is. She's trying to depict it as a much more sexist game than it is, and she takes a lot of her video games out of context. And there was a video that was leaked a couple years ago where she talked about she's not a video gamer and that she found a lot of these first-person shooters to be gross, and she finds most video games to be gross. And yeah, she did some of her research, but I think that the way she's a scammer, she's telling everybody, I'm a feminist and I'm a video gamer. And her ideal, I can't remember the name of the character, her ideal character is like a child's video game. Her ideal character that's not sexist. And so a lot of people are angry because they feel like, she feels like she's beyond reproach, beyond criticism, that she's a professional victim. She keeps talking about how she gets people trolling her and harassing her, and she's disabled all the comments on her videos and all the ratings on her videos, which I disagree because that takes away the community of your videos. But if you're just a scammer trying to get funds off Kickstarter and say, hey, look at me, I need $500,000 to do some crappy videos about video games that I didn't properly research. Anyway, have you heard of feminist frequency, Daniel?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you have no opinion on that.
No.
Okay, well, that is my take on feminist frequency. I do believe that she is a scammer. I mean, you're entitled to watch her videos. You're entitled to your own opinion. I don't think she's very genuine as a person. I have nothing wrong with pushing forward egalitarian philosophies, but a lot of feminists, I think, like feminist frequency, sometimes take things way too far. And the fact that she's not a genuine gamer and she takes a lot of the video games out of context because she hasn't obviously played it is problematic at best. But anyway, moving on, Dear Fat People response video. This was a video that I did. It got some negative ratings. I need to look at my YouTube. Go to my YouTube account real quick. This was a very controversial video. And a lot of people, I wanted to explain because a lot of people didn't understand what I was trying to say. Yeah, it's one of my few videos that's gotten more negative. It's gotten more thumbs down than it's gotten thumbs up. It got 3 thumbs down and 2 thumbs up and 1 comment. Right now it's only got 37 views, but some of my audience, I don't know if they just didn't agree with me. You're entitled to vote my video thumbs down. I have no problem with it. But the thing that really bothered me, the whole point of that video was, yeah, I thought her humor was a little crude. She's a comedian on YouTube, and her YouTube channel has been restored. And the video that YouTube took down has been brought back up, because YouTube realized it was a mistake. But the thing that was really disturbing to me, she did a comedy video called Dear Fat People, and she's talking about, some fat kid and on an airplane that had a disability. His fat rolls rolled on her lap, and it was really gross. And she's criticizing fat people, and I understand both sides of the coin, both perspectives. The thing that really bothered me was that I went to her fan page because I was trying to do research. The original video had been taken down by YouTube, but YouTube since restored it. Because they said it violated YouTube policies of discrimination. But I'm like, being fat is a lifestyle choice. You're also entitled to your own opinion. As long as you're not threatening somebody, as long as you're not doing anything homophobic or racist, she's entitled, even if you think she's an asshole, she's entitled to her opinion. I don't feel like you should have to double take your opinions. YouTube is supposed to be a form of free speech, or at least I think it is. And YouTube is, in my opinion, getting too thin skin. You got to have a thick skin on the internet You got to allow people to express their opinions, even if you don't like them. And so I didn't fully agree with everything that she said. I thought she was a little bit crude about it. I mean, there's some things that are funny, and she's a very attractive female. But I mean, and she uses her sex appeal to her advantage. I will say that. But she's entitled to her opinion, and it shouldn't have been taken down in the first place. Anyway, your response to that, Daniel? Have you heard of Nicole Arbor and the Dear Fat People video?
I have not.
Okay, so you have no opinion on that, I take it.
No, I have no.
Okay, well, that's all I had to say about that. So going on to the next topic that that me and Daniel have more in common with that we can talk about is Star Wars The Force Awakens Instagram trailer review. I know I'm a little bit late on this, but I'm only doing these live shows once every 2 weeks because I'm still trying to build up an audience. As of right now, I have 0 people watching live, and usually get between 30 and 40 views per episode. So hopefully, if this show actually picks up, I'll actually do more episodes. But yeah, so the reason why I've been late in doing a review about this trailer is because I wanted to do it for this show, a review. And it's a short 15-second trailer that was released on the Star Wars Instagram. Really cool trailer. What's your opinion about the Instagram trailer, Daniel?
I think it's cool.
I mean, I think it's cool because it's the first trailer that confirms that Finn at least partially gets trained to be a Jedi. He does like the Luke Skywalker thing. I'm sure it's like a novice versus a novice fight. But you see the same footage, some of the same footage from the first teaser trailer with Kylo Ren with his lightsaber, his double crossguard lightsaber. And then in the same like horror scene, you see Finn lighting his lightsaber. You're like, oh man, I really want to see more. I want the movie to be out now. And I was so curious about the movie. There was a guy. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'll just say like it is. It'd be entertaining. There was a guy selling bootleg copies of movies on the train, which is very common in LA. On the train, people sell bootleg copies, and sometimes they're able to get a bootleg copy of the movie before it's even released. And I even asked him out of desperation. I was like, hey, do you have a bootleg of Star Wars? That would be the only movie I would buy a bootleg for. Just simply because I would like to be able to see it first and I could give my first review. But big no, I'm sure. But sometimes you got to live dangerously. But yeah, and it actually shows. I think it looks like a snowtroopers in the first scene with the parade grounds, and then the really cool scene too. That's also new footage is you get to see BB-8 interacting with Rey, and Rey is looking startled or irritated. She's looking up at something. I would imagine it's a Star Destroyer But yeah, awesome trailer. They're doing a really good job at marketing. Disney is doing an excellent job of marketing, and with all the Star Wars figures that have sold out at local stores, I would imagine this movie is going to do quite a bit of it as well. It's going to do it at least as well as Avengers. But do you have any other comments on that, Daniel?
Yeah, it's good. I can't wait for the movie. I really can't wait for the movie. I mean, wow, it looks so awesome. Hey, do you think Maul is coming back, Darth Maul?
There are rumors that Darth Maul is coming back. There's rumors that Jar Jar is coming back. The interesting thing, I did a video on YouTube when most of the Star Wars figures were sold out, but there were some of the there's combat figures that have detachable limbs that are not as popular where you can face off and punch out. They're like punch off figures, they have big fists and you can add them and fight other Star Wars action figures. Those weren't sold out because they weren't as common, but I noticed there was a Jar Jar Binks figure, which for such an unpopular Star Wars character, it leads me to theorize that maybe Jar Jar might be in Episode 7, which might irritate a lot of fans, but I don't care. But I did see an interview with J.J. Abrams. He said that he would love to put Jar Jar's bones in Episode 7, but you would only see it in a background scene, and you would only see it for a couple of seconds. And he said that most people would probably not even notice. And he would do this to signify that, hey, Jar Jar is dead now. But even if he does that, then you need to do like filler. You need to either do an episode of Star Wars Rebels or something. I want to know what Jar Jar's final fate is. I don't think he was that bad of a character. I think George Lucas should have given the character more of a chance and not caved in to fan demands. We only know Jar Jar. Most fans only know Jar Jar from the Phantom Menace, and they don't know him from the Clone Wars cartoon. But the Clone Wars cartoon, he was actually pretty funny and pretty good character, in my opinion. And I also heard that Boba Fett is going to be in Episode 7 as well. Have you heard any other Star Wars rumors, Daniel?
No, I haven't. Wait, let me check online if there is anything. There might be. No, wait a second. I can't do it now. Not until my antivirus is downloaded.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, let that download. But the Disney has confirmed that Boba Fett did die, so this might lead up to the Boba Fett movie. Boba Fett would be very old, but even though Boba Fett is a clone of Jango Fett, unlike the clone troopers, he wasn't genetically modified, so he would age at a normal rate. But he would still be. Well, see, Boba Fett. See, Episode 2 and Episode 3 was like, I think it takes place like 20 years before, and Boba Fett was like maybe 7 years old. So by the time of the original trilogy, Boba Fett would be like 27, but then the sequels take place 30 years later. So Boba Fett would be 57. So he's a battle-hardened warrior, and he stayed in shape. He could still be a viable character.
What, now like 50?
Yeah, Boba Fett would, if he is alive in Episode 7, he'd be in his 50s. But like I said, I've seen people who were in their 50s, if they work out and stay in shape, they can still be viable as a warrior. So it'll be cool to bring Boba Fett back. I'm hoping the plot thread with there's several Star Wars characters that are kind of in there's still plot threads yet to be resolved, and that is Ahsoka. But we pretty much have confirmed from all the rumors about Season 2 that she gets killed, I think, in the season finale of Season 2 of Star Wars Rebels. She ends up confronting Darth Vader, and she's not able to defeat Darth Vader because he's too powerful, or she can't bring herself to kill her former master. So I would surmise that it's probably the second, because Ahsoka is pretty powerful. She's very nimble. Darth Vader, with his robotic limbs, he's not as nimble as he used to be anymore. He can't just jump around like he used to. So I would say that Ahsoka would have an advantage fighting Darth Vader, but I would think that the emotional element, that she was so emotionally attached to Anakin Skywalker, and she still knew him as Anakin Skywalker, she wouldn't be able to bring it to herself to kill him, and I theorize that's what Darth Vader takes advantage of. And Captain Rex, of course, being that he ages twice as fast, already by the time of Star Wars Rebels, he's already an elderly man. And so he definitely wouldn't survive to Episode 7. He would die in old age before that. And so that explains Captain Rex. He's probably going to die in Rebels, I would surmise, just like Ahsoka. But Darth Maul and Boba Fett are going to be the two biggest mysteries that I'd like to see resolved in Episode 7. And that could explain, if Darth Maul is still alive, maybe the Emperor would, sense that he could die, or nobody lives forever. But maybe he had Darth Maul on backup. He's like the backup Sith to come out of the shadows. Like, well, if I die, there needs to be another Sith to complete the rule of two. And technically, Darth Maul violated the rule of two, because technically during the Clone Wars there was 3 Sith. There was Darth Sidious, which would later become known as Emperor Palpatine. There was Darth Tyrannus or Count Dooku, and Darth Maul. And that's the reason why Darth Maul had also his own Sith apprentice. So technically, in some ways, it was 4 Sith. There was Savah Opress, who was the younger brother of Darth Maul that Darth Maul trained to be a Sith. But they weren't nearly as powerful as Darth Sidious, because Darth Sidious sensed a disturbance in the Force. Did you see that episode of Clone Wars where Darth Sidious... Okay, yeah, because Darth Sidious easily took out Savah Opress, killed him almost immediately. And then, amazingly, he doesn't kill Darth Maul. He's like torturing him with Force lightning. He's like, I've got a better use for you. And then the camera fades out to black, and complete mystery to what happened to Darth Maul. So it's obvious that he didn't kill Darth Maul, and that Darth Maul is still alive, at least by the time of, I would say, Star Wars Rebels. Darth Maul is still alive. Where is Darth Maul? Maybe Darth Maul is frozen. Maybe he's frozen in carbonite.
Or maybe
that could be. What?
Or maybe Ahsoka kills him in Rebels.
Well, from what I understand, Ahsoka is supposed to die in season 2. She's supposed to face off with Darth Vader.
Really?
That's the rumor I heard. Have you seen the season 2 trailer?
Nope.
In the season 2 trailer, she's like, I haven't sensed that presence since, and in Kanan, the other Jedi, he was like, since the Clone Wars. And you know what that's alluding to? She's talking about Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's so miserable to me that I don't have cable TV. I wish I had the Disney Channel. It kind of sucks in some ways that Disney bought out Star Wars, because now Clone Wars, when it was on the Cartoon Network, was very accessible because they had an agreement with Netflix. They allowed Netflix to stream episodes of Clone Wars. So when Clone Wars was out, I didn't even have to have cable TV. I was able to watch Clone Wars on Netflix. And then Netflix did a special deal where the unreleased season 6 was only released on Netflix. So there was like, they had already halfway finished season 6 when Disney canceled Clone Wars, which angered a lot of fans. And so they released, I think it was 14 episodes for season 6. Season 6 wasn't as long as previous seasons, but it was still pretty cool. And then they kind of continued some of the storylines on the Rebels, which I'm glad that they just didn't make Captain Rex disappear. He's one of my favorite. Captain Rex is one of my favorite characters. Go ahead.
Chris, I'm going to have to restart now, but I'll be back, all right? Any virus requires I restart.
Okay, is there any way you can hold off restarting?
Well, okay, fine. I guess I can put it off for now, yeah.
Put it off. There's only 20 more minutes left in this broadcast.
Okay.
Put it off for 20 minutes. That way I can have a little bit more, the show will be a little bit more fluid. I appreciate it.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, I mean, either Darth Maul is either going to die in Star Wars Rebels, or he's going to come back in the new trilogy. He's probably going to die in Star Wars Rebels. He could die in Star Wars Rebels. I don't know. From what I understand, J.J. Abrams hates the prequels. And if it were up to J.J. Abrams, he would pretend like the prequels never existed. But Disney has said the prequels aren't canon, and that Rebels and Clone Wars are canon. So he has to work with that. And that moves on to my next topic, is why Star Wars will be good despite J.J. Abrams. And as you already know, Daniel, I can't stand the way J.J. Abrams has handled the new Star Trek. And I felt it unfortunate that he's actually directing the new Star Wars movies, because he apparently is now signed on for Episode 8 as well. But the reason why I think Episode 7 will be good despite Abrams is the writer Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote Empire Strikes Back. He co-wrote Empire Strikes Back and co-wrote Return of the Jedi. And so if you have a very good writer, it can make all the difference with a mediocre, crappy director like J.J. Abrams. And the another thing is J.J. Abrams, unlike Star Trek, he doesn't have. He's just the director. He's not the executive producer. He doesn't have final say on what gets done in Star Wars. Like I said, like J.J. Abrams hated the prequels. He loved the original trilogy, and you can tell that with the way he's using real-world props, which I think is a good thing. I think it's a good thing what J.J. Abrams is doing with Episode 7, because it gives a more real-world, tactile feel, and it feels more realistic. It doesn't feel like a video game, like some of the prequels felt like. But and he can't, unlike Star Trek where it was the abandoned stepchild of Paramount, and the CBS studios are like, here, save our stepchild, do whatever you want with it, fuck it up. He can't do that with Star Wars. Like I could envision Abrams, if he had his way, he would pretend like the prequels never happened. So there would be no references to the prequels, and he would probably even rewrite the way, like everything would be like totally radically different, and it would piss off Star Wars fans. But Disney is not going to let him do that.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah, Kathleen Kennedy is the executive producer of the new Star Wars trilogy, and she was handpicked to be in charge of LucasArts, which LucasArts still exists. They're still a separate corporation from Disney, but Disney is the parent corporation, and the parent corporation Disney is Viacom. But anyway, what's your take on that? Do you agree with my analysis of that situation?
Yeah, definitely. Thank God that he can't cancel the prequels. I don't want him to. I like the prequels. They're really great.
The one thing I'm worried about is there are 10 Star Wars movies in production or in pre-production. And that's a lot of Star Wars films. And Disney is basically indefinitely planning to release a Star Wars film every year. Like this year, we got Star Wars Episode 7 coming out in December. Next December, in 2016, we got Star Wars Rogue One. And then in 2017, we got Star Wars Episode 7, December of 2018. Or 2017. 2017. Only a 2 year difference between Episode 7 and 8. That's unfounded for Star Wars. Go ahead, what were you going to say?
I really hope they're going to do Episode 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, here's why I don't think they will. Anyway, so 2017 will be Episode 8. And in 2019 will be the second movie, the sequel to Rogue One. And then in 2020 will be Episode 9. And in 2021 will be the third, because they said that Rogue One is going to be a trilogy. And they're going to release, which is a prequel series, if you guys don't already know. And they're going to be releasing Rogue One movies in between the sequels. And so by 2021, the third in the trilogy of Rogue One will be released. And then after that, this is what Disney plans to release. They plan to release the young Han Solo film, which actually is to be penned by Lawrence Kasdan. So it could be really good. And I predict that'll actually be really good just because it has Lawrence Kasdan's name on it. I'm a real big fan of Lawrence Kasdan as a screenwriter. He's not a director or a producer, he's just a screenwriter. He does good stuff. And there's a young Han Solo, a Boba Fett movie, a Yoda movie, and an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie in production. And the thing that got fans even more excited, I don't know if you heard about this, Ewan McGregor, who played the young Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequel trilogy, he said that he would be willing to reprise his role as Obi-Wan Kenobi in a solo movie. What do you think about that?
Cool.
He actually said it on Twitter, which got fans really excited. But he did admit, Ewan McGregor says that nobody from LucasArts has contacted him yet to do an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, which leads me to believe that they might actually portray Obi-Wan Kenobi by with a different actor. What do you think about that?
That's awesome.
Okay, so if they use a different actor other than Ewan McGregor, you feel like that's awesome.
Well, I guess I would accept that.
Okay. And since you're my Star Trek expert, we got 13 minutes left in the show. Um, do you have any Star Trek news or anything interesting to say about Star Trek?
Well, I don't think there's any, since I can't go on the internet right now, I can't really go and check if there's anything new. But,
well, I mean, did you see anything new yesterday when you were on the internet yesterday?
I think I went to Staples Business Depot and I did check. I checked it out and there was nothing new. And, but they did say that in the next movie they're gonna have like a Spock Bones dynamic thing. Like, I don't know, they're gonna have like a Spock Bones. Yeah, Spock and Bones are gonna team up in the next movie for something. I don't know. Whatever. They're trying to do the same Spock Bones thing they did for the TOS thing. Trying to redo that for new Star Trek. And I'm like, okay, it could be good,
I think it's going to suck. That's my personal, honest opinion. You already know my opinion, and I respect your opinion, even if it is different from my own. I feel like that's following with the true philosophy of Gene Roddenberry, which I consider myself a follower of the philosophies of Gene Roddenberry and Carl Sagan. But yeah, I wish Abrams would just quit Star Trek. It's like, Abrams, quit messing it up. Let somebody else take over Star Trek. You can do a good job. I know your Boom Boom Explosions did make some money and did very well, but let somebody else take over. But he apparently is not willing to give up the reins. I mean, even though Star Trek Beyond is going to be directed by somebody else, he's still the executive producer. And then what I saw on IMDb, they've already got Star Trek 4 in pre-production. He's the producer for that too. He's the executive producer for Star Trek 4. So he apparently wants to make Star Trek his baby, and he's going to run it into the ground. Maybe that'll actually be a good thing. If Abrams runs the Star Trek movies into the ground and alienates the fans even more than he already has, then maybe it'll be like Xbox.
Well, I think that I like the new Star Trek movies. The first one was really good. It made $385 million worldwide on a budget of $150 million.
Yeah.
And it succeeded. The second one, well, for various reasons, it didn't do well. Because they kind of screwed things up. They made Khan white. People didn't like that. And they used Khan. People didn't like that. They rehashed the Wrath of Khan story. They didn't like that either. There's so many things, I can't even name all the problems in that movie. There's so many. But had they just made Benedict Cumberbatch a different character, it would have succeeded. It would have done a lot better. What?
No, I agree.
I estimate it would have made like over $500 million if they did that.
Well, I mean, Star Trek Into Darkness, I am not going to lie with the numbers. Even if I don't like the numbers, I'm not going to refute facts, even if I don't like those facts. But the Star Trek Into Darkness made more money than any other Star Trek film before. And if you base it on global ticket sales, it actually did better than 2009 Star Trek. It did $475 million. So,
yeah, but
you're saying that it would have made another $25 million if they corrected all those things. Well, I mean,
get rid of that whole con crap. Get rid of all that.
That was really stupid. That was just so over the top, dumb, and that wasn't Spock. That's not Spock.
Yeah,
the whole Khan Superblood thing. That was really dumb. As the years have gone on, I've rethought. I'm like, okay, I don't have as much a big deal against red matter because there was other fictional substances like lithium crystals, so it's okay to have a fictional substance, but it's kind of cheesy. They simplified it to time travel through a black hole, but it had already been established. You just use a wormhole. You wouldn't use the black hole, but yeah, I had problems with some of the theoretical physics that they used in 2009 Star Trek. it made no sense that if you were going to try to save Romulus, you want to engulf the sun in a black hole because that would be just destructive. If you destroy the sun by sucking it up into a black hole, yeah, it doesn't go supernova and it doesn't destroy the planet, but then the planet would become ice. The planet would freeze and everybody would die. And so, because you would have no heat energy to fuel the planet again. And so that just seemed like whoever wrote that didn't really have a very good understanding of theoretical physics. And there had already been several episodes of Star Trek where they manipulated the molecular, or I should say, they manipulated the atomic structure of certain stars. And in theory, they already had technology on hand without having to be sophisticated with red matter and a black hole to try to swallow that didn't make sense trying to swallow the sun when you can just maybe fire a transphasic torpedo with like some new infusion of hydrogen or something. I'm not a physicist, as you can tell. I don't have a scientific background, but there were ways that you could reconfigure the Romulan sun without using a black hole. I'm kind of stumbling over my words here. But yeah, the problem I had was the thing that was really stupid for me in Star Trek 2009, directed by Jar Jar Abrams, the fact that he is a flunky cadet. He hasn't even graduated, and he gets made first officer. It's just really poor writing. I understand that they wanted a young Kirk to become captain, so they had to. It just because they had written everything differently, where Kirk apparently doesn't climb up the ranks. He just gets favoritism by Captain Pike and becomes first officer. And then in the second movie, it got really stupid where he's demoted to commander, then becomes captain again, and then gets demoted, or he's captain, and then he gets demoted to commander, and then promoted to captain again. I mean, it's just not very realistic to me, and it's because they wanted a young Kirk, and they wanted to do an origin story at the same time, but then they had to sacrifice good script writing, good story writing, in my opinion. But I respect your opinion, even if you like the 2009 Star Trek. I didn't. And I like Star Trek Into Darkness even worse too. I would consider that the worst Star Trek film of all time, even worse than Star Trek 5. But
I think they're gonna film in Dubai. I think they're gonna film in Dubai in like a week or two. I think so. Yeah.
Dubai has a lot of Star Trek fans. I had read something a few years ago. There was a Star Trek colony in Dubai. What is a Star Trek colony? It was very expensive. I think you had to spend like a couple $100,000 to buy your slot in. But they had like a commune where everybody lived. This is in Dubai. Dubai is a very rich city. They get a lot of oil money, very rich, and they had this Star Trek commune that you could buy your slot in, and then you live with everybody else in this large building, and everything's modeled like the deck of a ship from like a Galaxy class ship from like Star Trek Next Generation, and everybody's wearing the uniforms, and it's like a Star Trek community. I wonder what happened with that. This was something I heard about like 10 years ago. There was a Star Trek community in Dubai, and they had like a Star Trek colony. And I was like, that sounded so awesome. But the problem is that you had to buy in to be a part of this community. It's like a couple $100,000 to buy in.
Sounds awesome.
It does sound awesome. I just didn't have the money to buy in. And I'm a little bit. I would be a little bit scared of living in Dubai because that's in the United Arab Emirates, and they have very conservative laws, and they tolerate some things in the tourist areas of Dubai, but it is a fundamentalist Muslim country, and I wouldn't want to live there. I wouldn't mind visiting, but I wouldn't want to live there. But yeah, there'd be. I'll have to research that Star Trek commune. Maybe somebody thought of the same idea and United States. That would be an awesome community to live in. Like live as close as you can to the real Star Trek. Well, we got about 3 minutes left. Do you have any final words, Dan?
Well, oh my God, a lot of people don't like the idea that I've been reading on TrekCore that a lot of people don't like the idea that Trek is being filmed in Dubai because some people think that they were saying like, oh, it's weird that they're filming a movie about equality. Star Trek is about a movie about equality, right? And Dubai is like a third world country. Well, it's kind of like is it a third world country? I don't know, but they're saying
it's technically a third world country. Yes.
Yeah, but they're saying like there's so much inequality there, like they're so judgmental, like your pay, like for instance, the pay that you earn, it depends on who you are, like there's a lot of racism there. I don't know. That's what
there's a
saying.
lot of racism to. There's like an Indian immigrants who go there to work, and they basically confiscate their passport, and they're treated like slaves. They don't get paid, and they end up working for free or next to nothing, and they work them like dogs. So there's a lot of problems with Dubai. The problem with Dubai is it's so wealthy. Everybody who's a citizen there gets oil revenue. So if you're a citizen of Dubai or citizen of the United Arab Emirates, you technically don't have to work. You just live off the oil revenue. So they have to bring in outside workers. And they mistreat a lot of them. But in some ways, I'm not surprised because there is a large fan base of people who love Star Trek that live in Dubai. With all those things. You got to go wherever it's cheapest for film production. I guess maybe it's cheap. Hopefully, they're not using any slave labor. But I feel like Abrams kind of goes contrary to J. Roddenberry vision anyway. So that'd be a very Abrams thing to do. But let me wrap up. This is Steampunk Star Raisin out. And thank you, Daniel, for being my guest. And you have a nice day, and I will see you 25 billion years. I will.
Yeah, me too.